Tell me something that you've learned in
Oh,
your
yes.
walk.
Hold on, start over.
Okay.
Oh, the camera's running again. Oh.
Camera's always rolling.
Can I still just be behind the camera? I'm not a good camera person.
Sylvie,
Oh,
you
stop
good.
it. The camera loves you.
No, so yeah.
Okay.
So what have you guys learned? Or what?
A lot.
I know you've learned a lot. But
So they've been married for 2.5 years.
2.5
So basically
years.
they're toddlers.
Toddlers.
So what, being a toddler, what have you learned so far?
I know that's a
Sylvie?
very wide-based question. But
I've learned a lot actually. I've always been told by godly counselors that marriage is a school, and it indeed is. When you realize that marriage is a school, you're not always so easily upset at mistakes, and you're willing to say, hey, we're learning, and every day you're just trying to grow and learn and be each other's helpmeet to grow and learn. So that's one of the things that was solidified in my mind, that
It's a school.
it's a school, and it's if you mess, it's not like, oh, I can't believe he did that. Yes, he's smart, but he's learning and I'm learning. So we don't put that pressure with the expectations and all the things we think. So just remember that marriage is a school. So in school you learn and you grow. That's the most beautiful thing. I love
homework.
Yes, you do homework.
And what's homework?
That's a good question. What did you mean when you said homework?
I feel like when you're in, when you're in the, in the relationship, in the marriage, not just in dating, even in then, you can't just. What did someone say one time? It's what you put into it. So you can't expect that. Oh, he's just gonna love me. It's just gonna be like this. It doesn't matter if my nails grow 10 inches too long and it's scratch him at night. I'm just kidding. That's not. But that's superficial. But I'm just saying, like, you have to put into it. You have to be like, you have to make conscious decisions to be like, okay, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. If we're gonna have a night where we stay in, it's not about the outside world, but it's about growing our relationship, or
That's absolutely right.
or whatever you feel like you need to
Cultivate the love.
Because being intentional,
cultivating,
yes,
Cultivating the love.
that's the word. Definitely being intentional.
But
and responsibilities. There are
so many, and you
different
have to.
responsibilities that marriage is a responsibility of. You have to be an adult. You're growing and you're learning, but it's not just, you're not a doll. I believe Ellen White says that you're just gonna sit there and everything. There's cooking, there's cleaning, there's
and that's
these
work.
things.
And you have to think about somebody else. Other than yourself.
Exactly.
You don't
yourself.
You don't say, I'm gonna cook today.
Yeah, and a lot of people
have to
don't
eat today.
think about these little things. It's just, you just see this, you're running into the sun, but you wake up the next day and you go to work the next day. What type of home are you building?
Right.
You are, like the chapter said, you're a builder of your home. So I believe that's the homework.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's work. Marriage involves lots of work.
It involves intentional things like this young lady said.
Especially
you don't run into the people.
when it comes to ladies and the happiness of the home, right? The women are the centerpiece.
Yes, I believe that.
What do you mean by
When the
that?
wife is
Go back on him.
Hold on a second.
Go back on him.
What?
Repeat.
When it comes to the happiness of the home, the women are the centerpiece of the home.
What do you mean
Women
by
are-
that?
Well, okay, and we know, and we all know it's a ministry of healing. Eucharist. She says specifically that the mother is the centerpiece of the home.
She's the main attraction.
Correct, the main attraction, right?
Yes.
The main attraction of the home. So the happiness of the home, to a great degree, depends on the mother, but specifically it starts with the father making the woman or the mother happy. But then that joy is supposed to shine forth from the woman and spread to the whole home, right?
No,
And that's really how it goes.
true.
But-
He reminds me.
Reflecting the light of the sun.
He reminds me if I ever like, oh, I'm just moody today, and he's like, babe, remember,
Right. And
you carry the atmosphere of the home. So
Yeah.
it kind of.
I tell her.
Yes.
So you say it.
It's
Yeah, I
the
tell her
right
that.
thing
I tell
to
her
do.
that.
Like you said, you make her happy.
I think
Not
it's
that
one thing to know it, but it's another other thing when you, as a man, to bring it forth and be like this, to make it verbal, because it brings it to a different level. It's
That's
not just
true.
the knowledge of it. It's not just the head knowledge of what it's supposed to be.
Right.
Because it's very easy for us to fall into, I just don't feel good today. Okay, I got PMS,
And
or I got whatever.
it's not
But
right
when
when
he
you're
brings
married.
when he brings it up front, it's like, but you know what I mean? Especially when you start to have kids in the home. And it's not just about you
and
the two of you.
I'm just having a
There's
bad
more
day
to it.
today. I
And
just
that-
want to
And that
throw
all
my
comes from the
covers on
Bible,
my
if you
head.
remember, right? You guys know Revelation 21, right? What does John see coming from the sky?
A bride.
He sees the New Jerusalem coming out of heaven as a bride adorned for her husband.
Wow.
Right? So you notice how God is not focusing on himself at the end of time. Who's he focusing on at the end? On his bride.
On his people.
Right,
Which
and that's
is us.
yes, which is us. So you know,
Right.
God could be like, look at me, I just saved all of you.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. He says he tells John, look, what do you see coming? And John says, I see New Jerusalem coming down like a bride adorned for a husband. Right? So even God's focus at the end of time is on his people still.
Wow.
He wants the whole world to see us.
Wow.
Right? So because everybody knows that these were people that God redeemed, and they were redeemed why? Because why? They loved them, why? And they kept his commandments. To keep God's commandments is really just to reflect his character.
Yeah.
So these people have become like God even though they were not like God.
Right.
So God's glory is his people, his character and his people. So that should be always reflected in the home. That's why we should be careful about reversing roles in the home. Because it's we're throwing God's order out of whack. We don't want to do that. People
I
should
agree.
be...
I agree with you.
But what do you mean by reversing? Okay, man, not all physical roles. You're talking not just, you don't have to turn it, please. You're not talking just about physical roles. You're talking about deeper, or do you mean like, okay, the man cooking instead of whatever?
No.
You're talking about like deeper roles.
Right, I'm talking about deeper roles, right? Specifically,
As in?
right? There's nothing wrong with a man cooking, right? But the deeper roles would include what? The spiritual leader of the home should be the father. If he's not, then there are times where the woman has to step up for the sake of the children. You know what I mean? But he should, the woman should always encourage him to do it. And he should be the spiritual leader of his home. He should be the priest of his home. And I tell you, not that I want to get too much into government society.
I know.
But we could go there.
Government society too.
Right, just stay focused, right? But that's my point is, why I brought that thing about the pure division is the gender roles. The man should be the priest in the home, and that shouldn't change, no matter what. The man should not only lead spiritually, he should be the provider, right? Now, that's not saying the woman can't work. The woman can work, but when you have children, the children have to take priority over anything else.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's hard for women who have really, are really climbed up high of the education scale.
Education really has nothing to do with it. I think it's more about just a placement of priorities.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can be incredibly well educated, and you can offer that to your children, your husband, and the people around you. But I think the key thing is, even being married, like you said, you set the atmosphere of the home, not just by your presence, but what you bring to the home atmosphere in terms of what you do in the home, the way you order your household. And if you're a woman, well educated or not, and you're working and you're spending most of your time outside of the home, you can justify that in different ways. And for people that grew up in single parent homes, perhaps that was, the only way that things could be done. But it really takes a toll, especially when you have kids. You know what I mean? You can be doing God's work outside the home, but if you spend more of your time outside and not enough time creating that atmosphere for your husband and your children, the family will suffer.
Right.
And I've seen it over and over again, so you really have to make that sacrifice. And I think women are happier too when the husband, like you said, is doing what he should be doing and leading, making the wife happy, doing what he can to romance her and so forth. She really is motivated and feels valued in her place in the home. And in our society today, there's been a kind of detraction of that value because we place more emphasis on, the value of, making money, education, or using your education, climbing that corporate ladder, and it's, that's where things go off, or misplaced sense of value. But I completely agree with you, women should be, I think it's an issue of time spent as well, not just, because women can work, but I think if you're working and you're coming home, late in the evening, and there's not much time to cook dinner or spend time with the kids, foster something within them, have time for your husband, then it's a problem.
Right.
I really believe that.
I hear quite a few women who are they may be more interested in working while being in the home. I remember one girl said to me that there are studies that said that there are women who are happier working than women who are at home mothers. So I'm wondering,
Why is that?
yeah, how I know there must be many reasons why those women are dissatisfied with being at home, but how do you convince or bring some sort of good points to somebody who says, I've been there and I couldn't stand being a stay-at-home mom. I had to go out and work and whatever.
Wow.
Take it from someone that's I'm a very active person. I can't really stay still for a very long time, and I'm very good. I love working. I love what I do for a job. Could not imagine doing anything else. But I think it comes down to that glory you're talking about, reflection of godliness. It becomes, when I do get married, by the grace of God, and if it's what He wants me to do, I actually think about all the time about doing home, like staying at home with the kids until they're like a certain amount, and I'm thinking about homeschooling.
Yes. Go ahead,
Like
girl.
seriously. And this is from someone that does go to work and know that I do want to still go to work and still do that, because I think what happens is that a lot of women, the ones that are not happy staying at home with the kids and whatever, first of all, they don't have a man that is treating them like a heart.
That's right.
Amen. That is
Number one.
I think that they don't, because if you have someone that is valuing what you do and is as you said, you're the reflection, you're the joy, whatever of the home, then what you do becomes important. From society's standpoint, when a woman stays at home, she loses value because she's not giving value to society. So what you need to have a man or a society or environment that sees that what you're doing inside the home is of value. Because we have been devalued by devalued, is that a word? Thank you. There we go. That works. Because it's true. Because the values of the home have been decreased in society. We don't put values into the things that we teach the kids anymore. The TVs are babysitter, not even us. You don't even use humans for babysitting. Even when you have someone come over and babysit, they plop the kid in front of the TV and they're like, okay, there you go, you learn. And so that's the reason why they're not happy. Because they're not happy about what they do in the home, is because they don't see the value in what they're doing in the home.
And they're not validated by their husband.
Exactly, they're not validated to make it seem. Because so now when you go out, it's like, why don't you get your master's here? Oh my gosh, you're so smart.
Mercy.
You're teaching. Oh my gosh, you did that for years. Da, 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 da. They put value in the things that you're doing. So if you, as a woman, if you see that you're climbing corporate ladder, if you see that you are intelligent, and we are very intelligent, and we are very strong, and we're very powerful, we're as you were saying, we're equal in many different ways, but we're also different in very different ways. I love my femininity. I am not one of these, I'm an independent woman, I need to whatever. I was made to be a woman. I was made to be a woman, to be loved by a man.
Come
I am
on.
not a woman. I am no woman. Okay? But it's true. But I think a lot of women don't feel that way. A lot of women
It brainwashed us.
exactly.
It really has.
Because I feel like it has taken away something of value from us.
Yes. As in, there's weakness.
There's
in
nothing
womanhood.
wrong with wearing pants. There is nothing wrong with being CEO. There's nothing wrong. But I think you have I look at Hillary Clinton and what she has accomplished. I'm proud of what she has accomplished, but I feel like sometimes she feels because she has accomplished that she has to be hard. She cannot be a heart anymore. How can that be the heart of the home? Because it has forced us to put on a face of corporate America. You know what I mean? Like it's forced you to put on a certain character.
You have to overcompensate as a woman.
As a woman, I've had women that are bosses, that are like high bosses, and they, even if they want to do something, but they're like, it's such a dog eat dog world out there. I cannot be nice. I cannot be whatever. And so what you do when you go home? Do you take that attitude home? And what are you teaching to your kids?
It's hard to make the transition.
You know what I'm saying? And then that's why I think there's certain places we shouldn't be, just because of that. Not because we can't do it, because we can't. But because there's certain things you shouldn't, because it's just not their value. And that's the reason why they don't feel important. They're not validated by what they do.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that's important what you said too. You know, women can do a lot of things that men can do.
Even better. No offense.
Hey, you know what I mean? And I could say in some areas even better, right? But the reality is that we shouldn't base what we do in life on those things, because there's a lot of things that people do good that are completely against God's order. You know, there are men that can run awesome liquor businesses. They know that. Yeah, seriously, they know that. If you could read a little bit about that in Adventist history, you know what?
Liquor?
Liquor, like real liquor, like you know, Ellen White specifically. You could read in some of her writings that she addressed people, brethren in the church, who ran very successful liquor businesses, but they would give liberally to the church, so they would justify their actions because they gave liberally to the church while they were actually destroying society. You know what I mean? And they knew their industry well. Does that mean that God wanted them to do that? they could do it well. You know, men could do, there are things that men can do very well. There are things that women can do very well, right? Exactly. There are some people that are very good at dealing drugs. That they know the hustle.
They don't have to even like do it. They just know how to put it to different places.
Right, but we can't base everything just strictly on what we're good at and what our abilities are. You know, God can take our abilities and put them in a different direction, and we can do things more for Him there than otherwise. You know, so, you know, just getting back a little bit to the gender roles, you know, people should be able to look at our families, and what does Adventist Home say about the home? The home should be what? A taste of heaven on earth. So people, listen, do you guys know Dwayne Lemon? Brother Dwayne Lemon?
Yes.
Dwayne Lemon, right? Yeah, Brother Dwayne Lemon. You can listen to some of his sermons on Audioverse. Anyway, I'm not sure if he says that in his country, I think he does say it in his country living sermon. He says this, right? He had a visitor come to his home, right? And I know Brother Lemon because he lives in New Hampshire now. He works at the school. So he had a visitor come to his home, and you know, they lived in the country, and they happened to be there on a Friday evening. These were non-Adventists, they weren't Christians. Come visit his house, you know, and he told us that the people were so impressed with his family, with the obedience of the children, with the love in the home. Right? And that was it, you know. They talked to him, they had worship together, and then he didn't see him again for like, I think maybe months or years. And the next time he saw him at an Adventist church. And the guy told him, yeah, he said, you know, I was so impressed with your family that, you know, he wanted to know what it is that was causing that. So that was,
I just had shivers.
It was
down my spine.
We are the light of the world,
right,
you know?
Yeah.
Like a city on a hill.
Right, exactly. So that the testimony of the home, really, people should be able to see Christ in His church. Right, and if people see Christ in His church in the home, then they would actually have a taste of what it is like, God's love for His people. You know, so that's the importance of the home and why we should try to do our best to keep it in the order that God put it. Right? Ephesians 5, husbands love your wives, that Christ loved the church. So automatically means, who is the symbol of Christ in the home? We are, but specifically in the roles, the men, right? And the wife is the centerpiece of the home, just like what God's church is the centerpiece of the universe. You know, that bride that comes out of heaven, you know, the New Jerusalem. So, you know, and to me, you know what I mean, that's not, for a woman, that should be taken as that's a high place, you know, because she's being the symbol of God's glory to the universe in the home. You know, like the way the church is God's glory, you know, a symbol of God's glory, actually an expression of God's glory to the universe. The wife is an expression of God's glory in the home. You know, so it's not a small thing. You know, it's a great thing. You know, yeah. I'm done.
But so going back to the question that Natalie had asked, that, you know, the studies that they mentioned, don't take me, please.
Hostess, please.
Just going back to addressing the studies thing.
Yeah, the studies, you know, how they say that.
Are these Christian home studies?
Exactly. I question the validity of the studies.
No, most likely, because the person who was telling me about these studies or whatever it is someone who believes in going out, and, you know, everything can be geared to, if I ask, you know, us these questions, and then I'm going to say, well, study says this and this and that, because half the time those studies are done, they never ask me any questions. They didn't ask, you know, they didn't ask anyone else, but that I know. So, I mean, I was just saying, for those people who, you know, their mind is focused on staying out of the home, and they'll tell you many instances where someone, you know, they were going crazy. Like, really, I have a sister-in-law. She, but for her, it was a different situation, though, because my brother, he was in the military, and he had to be deployed, and so she was just, like, losing it, and she just had a baby. So, you know, we had to, you know, bring her up here. She was in a state almost alone. She only had one single friend from her country and such. So it was a little different.
So it is different.
But there are people who will take something like that and say, "Oh, you see, they can't stand being at home, and they're going to go nuts." And you know, some women can't stay at home, and they feel like they're not doing anything. But like you said, you know, it's not valued. If we were trained to think that going up the corporate ladder is what's great, then we're going to think, "Oh man,
that's a human feeling. That's a human emotion to feel valued."
Yeah.
And I also was saying, just because you're staying home too, does not mean the husband needs to be out all day, never coming home because he's taking care, trying to get the bread. Because then, if he's trying to get the bread and he's not fulfilling me, then he needs to get under the bread. We're gonna. Go ahead.
No. Just to continue with what you were saying, David Ashok has this sermon on what does he call it? The 5 C's of marriage, something like that. He says it every wedding that he does. And one of the things he says at the beginning, and this was cutting, you know, it was really interesting. Using the story of Adam and Eve, he made the point that, you know, a huge part of the reason for existing, this is the way he put it, of a woman, is the man. Now, I mean, naturally, I reject that a little bit. I'm like, I'm an individual, you know, Jesus Christ doing my thing, you know. No, but here's the thing, though. You know, Eve was created to be a helpmeet for Adam, and so basically, he broke that down to say, if you're a man and you're a workaholic, you are ruining your wife. You are literally crippling her spirit. Literally. You know, and the idea is not codependency. You know what I mean? Such that, you know, your value comes from Christ first, as Eve's did, but if you have built a family with someone, you're now one with this person, and he is not, you know, feeding you in various ways, and there's no communion between you guys, there's no depth of a relationship there, you're losing it, or you're not getting it on a regular basis, how are you going to be happy in the situation that you guys were created together? It wasn't designed to be that way, you know, so the different parts have to be functioning is what it sounds like. And I would also say, like, to be practical, like, if you're at home, I wouldn't be happy 24/7 just in the house. Go out, you know, invite other mothers, like, you know, be practical, have friends, do things at church, be balanced as much as you can be. You don't have to be just, you know, laundry, this, that, 24/7. Like, you have to be balanced. And also, the last thing I would say is, I don't know how this works out, but there's this guy, what is his name? Paul Washer?
Yeah.
Do you guys know? He really preaches some biblical stuff, and, you know, in one of his sermons, he was really describing, you know, order of priorities in the home, and he said, and obviously use biblical references for it, that, you know, your relationship with your spouse, second to God, is first. You know, so if you're putting your children, obviously children need care and love and attention, but you've got to maintain your relationship with your spouse. Yeah. If kids are taking precedence, then there's an imbalance that's going to happen. And happiness will be sacrificed. You know, kids, you take care of them and so forth, but there's got to be a priority placed on my relationship with my husband, you know, which is something we don't hear a lot.
You learn too, because when you give them more, kids pick up on that stuff, and then they have an unbalanced, unrealistic view of what a relationship is. A lot of us grow up, a lot of us right now or whatever, young people, young adults, you have a lot of young adults that are not married and whatnot, and I think they have a skewed view of what a relationship is, and that brings a skewed view to what the relationship with God is. Relationship is relationship. When we were saying before about how the husband has to take, like, you know, come home and be with the wife, blah, blah, blah. You're saying if you don't put into that relationship, then that relationship will fall. It's the same, relationship is relationship. You think about teenagers and how come at that certain age they lose interest in church and they don't want to come. It's because they're not putting much into their relationship at that time with Christ. They're more into the secular world, more into the music, they're more into what their friends are doing. They're getting that outside influence, so they're not putting into that relationship with Christ. And so they're not putting into that relationship with Christ, and they lose interest in the church. It's the same thing in your relationship with your husband. You're not putting into it, then you're going to lose interest in that, because you're going to find outside influences to influence you, because as humans, we are made to be in a relationship. We are made to worship. We are made to be in a relationship. We're made in whatever it's a friendship relationship or anything, we'll always be influenced.
Wow.
So it just depends on what you choose for your influence to be. Because that as humans, that's how God made us to be.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, ladies. It was a blessing listening to all of you.
Remember morning and evening devotion.
Yes.
Together.
Yes, that's the hard part.
Together, yeah. Because
what difference does it make, Sylvie? You know, as a married woman,
it makes a huge difference. Unity, that's the foundation of the home. Wow. You know, the home is likened into also the sanctuary, and you know, especially also when children come along, they recognize those things when mom and dad are not, you know, some people pray by themselves, and it's just, they pick up on the division. They pick up on, I had a friend who told me that there's a young lady who had left the church, and she's, you know, smoking and doing all these, and we remember her as an innocent little girl, and my friend told me when she was an innocent little girl, she told me one day that my mom is more spiritual than my dad. My dad doesn't pray with my mom. You know, we look
And she picked up on
fast forward now and we see this is the effect that it's had on her. And I'm like, wow, how important it is to pray together. Even when you're upset with each other, pray together. Pray together. I'm not gonna pray, because that's how Satan, just like what he did to Adam and Eve, that's how he causes division in the home. You stop praying it's hard for you to stay mad at someone you're praying with.
Wow.
It's true.
So that's all I have to say.
Amen. Praise the Lord. Thank you for sharing that, Tilly. That's very important. That's very important. They say often the family that prays together stays together. As much as we may know it in theory, but it's another thing to practice it. But we hope that we can.
You might be tempted to, life is going to happen.
Exactly.
You're planning to go to school. And you might have to wake up early in the morning, pray together. Because you'll get into a habit of not praying together. And then you turn around, you're like, wow, what happened?
Wow.
We're so far removed from God.
Wow.
Because
And from each other.
From each other, yes. Because that's how Christ has to be the center.
Yes.
Christ is, it's like if you imagine a circle, Christ is the center. The closer the lines draw to Christ, the closer the lines are to each other. There's a description of that in the Adventist home. Like if you think of a circle with lines, when Christ is in the center, that's where the relationship is really grounded in Christ.
Amen. Praise the Lord. We should meet again tomorrow.